smoke alarms, they do save lives, for sure. I've been to quite a bit of fatalities over my 26 plus years in the fire service. And I would say 98% of them who perished in fires did not have a working smoke alarm.
Hello, I am Celia Sanka, Executive Director of the DiversityCanada Foundation, the organization that brings you GoldenVoices.com. That's the online portal where seniors gather to focus on issues of importance to seniors. And at GoldenVoices.com, you will find our Golden Years Fireside Chat series, where we speak with experts as well as everyday seniors on topics under the theme of living longer and living well. And on the topic of living longer and living well, we will be focusing today on fire safety for seniors. You know, seniors have been around fire for decades and decades, working in the kitchen, in other areas, campfires, etc. And we may have the impression that we know all about fire safety and seniors are in no danger from fires. Sadly, the opposite is true. So we are speaking today with John Thomas, who is the fire chief at the Elliott Lake Fire Department. Thank you so much for being with us, John. I really appreciate your being here to share with seniors so much that we need to know in order to be safe from fires. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Great. So before we get started, just a little bit of your background. So you are the fire chief of Elliott Lakes City, the City of Elliott Lakes Fire Department. How long have you been in the fire service?
I've been with the department now for approximately just over 26 years. I started through the ranks as a volunteer firefighter. I got hired as a full-time firefighter and then became captain, and then in 2017 I became the fire chief, and very fortunate to have such a great job in our community, and really like doing the job.
That's wonderful, John. So 26 years, that's a lot of experience. And over that time, I'm sure that you've had many emergencies to attend to from all the way back in the days as a volunteer to now. What I've heard is that people 65 years and older are at a greater risk of being injured or killed in fires. How true is that?
In today's fire calls that we've been going to, the numbers are high, but they're no higher than anybody will say between the ages of 40 to 60. People who are ages 65 and older seem to be a little bit more cautious for fire safety protection. They, making sure their smoke alarms are working properly. Usually when we go to calls with people that are say 65 and older, it's usually small alarms that we go to, where it's cooking, unattended cooking, or they forget something is in the oven, or forget something is on the stove. Those are usually the ones that we go to. But I believe in the province of Ontario, when you start looking at people fatalities and numbers like that, the numbers are usually younger than 65, and it's. So when you have children, you have younger adults and stuff like that, they're a little bit careless when it comes to fire safety. A lot of times it's to do with alcohol or some type of controlled substance that they're using, and decide that at 2 o'clock in the morning they want to have cooked French fries and fall asleep, and usually that's where the fatalities will come in for that age group. 65 and above, they do happen, but not as often as people who are younger.
And what about going even older in terms of 75 and above? What does the picture look like?
When you get into 75 and above, unfortunately, there's people who perish in fires. Sometimes it's to do with unattended cooking and stuff like that. The big problem once you started getting older there is mobility issues, whether they have hearing impairments or some type of visual impairments there, where it's hard for them to get outside when a smoke alarm does activate. Usually, like I said, it's if there's not a working smoke alarm, and for some of these seniors where they have nobody to help maintain them, or they just forget they're even there, right? That's usually when we start getting fatalities for people who are older, say 70 and above, and it's usually because they can't get out.
At the older age, I imagine also there is the frailty factor that may come in. Let's say someone is working in the kitchen and does not have the same amount of strength to maneuver a full pot of oil as they would have in the past to do the fried chicken or so.
You know what? As people get older, that doesn't seem to be as much of a problem as it used to be, where you have cooking oil fires. That seems to be with the younger generations, where people want French fries, but with the older seniors, not so much. And in our community, we have Meals on Wheels. We have other agencies that help supply meals for the people who are quite a bit older and stuff like that. So they're not using their stoves as much as, say, somebody who is quite a bit younger. So when we start getting into structure fires or response to home fires and stuff like that, as they get older, it seems to go down quite a bit, because they either have some type of home care coming in to help cook their meals for them, or they're using an outside agency like Meals on Wheels from Huron Lodge.
That seems like a good solution to a situation where there could be an emergent danger with someone who has difficulty with managing in the kitchen. If there is outside help coming in to help seniors stay in their home by taking care of those chores around the house that could pose a danger with fire, that seems to be a good solution for that, to keep the fire danger down. Okay, so let's take a look at smoking. What role does smoking and the use of cigarettes play in the incidence of fires?
Over the years, a lot of people stop smoking in their homes. A lot of people now go outside to have their cigarettes. When we start having fires that are due to improperly discarding smoking material, whether cigarettes or cigars or anything like that, it's usually it's outside, where they'll put them in the flower pots where there's peat moss and something like that, which if there's a little bit of wind, will ignite and usually starts catching the exterior and then sometimes work its way in. In Elliott Lake, we still do have improper discarding of smoking material, which do cause home fires, whether they're emptying their ashtray out in the garbage can instead of making sure that it's been wetted down, or sometimes they'll put it out on their supper plates, right? Big thing there when you start getting into people who are smoking is if they have oxygen. If they have their nasal cannula on, and if they're smoking and there's a small pinhole, well then you're going to have ignition and then have a fire. And that's happened several times now over my 26 years with the department, that I've come across that, where people's clothing has caught fire, and it's usually due to a small hole in their nasal cannula. The new furniture today, they are treated with some type of flame-resistant material, whether it's the material itself or something that is sprayed onto the material, so it won't support combustion. So if somebody does drop a cigarette, it will melt and the covering or the topping of it, but it won't ignite like the old furniture back in the 70s or early 80s. So things have gotten better that way, where we don't have too many fires now caused by smoking.
That's interesting. So, someone who's been holding on to some furniture from decades and decades ago may want to look at updating the furniture in the room to ensure that it's not a combustible material around them. So, when we're looking at smokers, I heard a couple of tips there, but what are some of the top tips that smokers should follow to ensure that they don't pose a danger to themselves in terms of starting fires?
Well, the big one is to make sure that you have a proper container to extinguish the cigarette in. The big one, and the other one as well is, when you do go to clean your ashtray or container, you want to make sure that everything is completely out. Whether you wet things down or wait over a period of time before you just put it into the garbage can. We don't hear so much about people smoking in bed anymore. Like I said, the majority of the people today will go outside to have their cigarettes. So those would be the big ones, just to make sure that you have a proper container to put your cigarettes into when you're finishing them, and to make sure that they're completely out before you put them in the garbage.
Okay, so let's move on to another seems to be a big problem that I've heard about in terms of fire safety overall, and that's space heaters. How much of a problem does that pose?
Well, today it is quite a bit a problem throughout the province of Ontario. The big thing is people not having the proper clearances when they're using these type of articles to heat their home. There is manufacturers' recommendations on how far you should be away from something, whether it's curtains or Chesterfield or stuff like that. You should follow. You should never have anything butted up against the heater when in use. And another thing that's a problem with when you start to get into these portable heating devices is using an extension cord. They draw a lot of power and a lot of energy, and sometimes people will use this extension cord for weeks on end, right? Especially when it gets really cold outside. An extension cord is only to be used as temporary wiring. So it's not designed to be plugged in for a long extended period of time, because they'll break down, they'll heat up, and they can cause fires. And when you start using these portable heaters and extension cords, a lot of people will run the cords underneath carpet, rugs, or stuff like that, so they're not tripping over them or being an eyesore. This is very dangerous, right? You have these cords that are being used what they're not intended for, and they will generate heat. So when you have something laying on top of them, there's no way for this heat to escape, right? And this is how we've been to fires there, and you can see where it burnt right through the carpet, through the rugs, burnt the floor, and then we had a full-blown structure fire. So these are the big things that you have to be careful about when it comes into using these type of portable heaters. They're great to use when they're used properly, but they can be very dangerous if they're not.
Got you on that. So let's move on to another type of heating. Seniors who heat their homes with fireplaces or wood stoves, they can be pretty dangerous as well. How can seniors keep that danger away, that danger at bay?
So the big thing when you start using wood stoves and gas fireplaces and stuff like that, it's all about maintenance. If you do have a wood stove and you do have a fireplace, you should make arrangements to have it done annually, just to make sure that everything is proper. Another thing there, when you are burning wood and stuff like that, you want to make sure that it's good wood, right? Not wet wood where you get a lot of creosote build up into the chimney or the wood stove pipe there, because this is where we start having chimney fires. And they can cause damage to your fireplace. They can cause damage to your wood stove. Anytime you're having an inspection or maintenance done on your wood stove, you want to make sure it's done by somebody who is certified. There is different companies around the North Shore that do wood stoves. So you want to make sure somebody is certified, they know what they're doing, and they know what to look for. Anytime you're using a wood stove or you're using a gas fireplace, when you go to clean everything out, you want to make sure that you have a proper container to put those ashes in. Okay, if you're using a plastic bucket, some of these ashes are still hot and can remain hot for a long period of time, where the container, that if it's a combustible, will ignite. I've been to calls like that. Another thing to have if you're going to use a wood stove or wood fireplace, you want to make sure you have a carbon monoxide alarm. A carbon monoxide alarm is used to detect carbon monoxide, which is sometimes the byproduct of using a wood stove or a fireplace. So it's very important to have that. Other thing for wood stoves and fireplaces is to make sure that the firewood that you're using is in a proper distance away from your stove, right? We wouldn't want you to have your wood piled up pretty close to the wood stove and have that ignite. Okay, you want to make sure that there's a nice clear distance where nothing is going to get hot and we don't have to worry about ignition. So those are the things that are about wood burning appliances, we'll call them, that you should be cautious about. But the big one is to make sure that the maintenance is done and it's inspected by a proper technician.
What certification should a customer ask for?
It's called WETT, W-E-T-T certification. Usually, your insurance company will demand to have a copy of the inspection that is done, whether it's annually or biannually, I'm not quite sure. And I believe it's called Wood Energy Technology Technician, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But that's the certification that you're looking for. It's called WETT, W-E-T-T.
Thank you for that, John. So we had, so that takes care of both the electrical heating system and the wood burning systems. So most of the use of fire in the home is in the kitchen. So if we can take some time to look at cooking tips or tips to prevent fires in the kitchen when we're cooking.
So some tips that people should keep in mind when they're cooking is never leave anything unattended, right? If you have something cooking on the stove, you should always give that full attention. You should have a lid that is the proper size so that if something does ignite, you can put a lid on it right away and put the fire out. What we've noticed this year, we've had a couple fires there where people have put things on top of the stove, whether books or coffee machines and stuff like that. And when they go to turn a burner on for, say, to boil water or stuff like that, they turn the wrong burner on and then causes stuff on the other burner to ignite. Big thing. If you're cooking, make sure that you have the proper pots to put on the stove to be cooking with, and never put anything on the stove that is combustible, whether it's paper or boxes. You know, people sometimes won't have room on their counter space, so they'll just put something on top of the stove while they go to do something, and go to use the stove for something else, and light the stove there where a box is, for example, right? We've had a couple fires like that. Another thing that for safe cooking there, if you do have a fire extinguisher in your kitchen, you want to make sure that you know how to use it. Anybody in the fire department is more than willing to come to show you how to operate a fire extinguisher. You want to make sure when you're cooking that you don't have clothing that you worry about whether you're reaching over to grab something, and if you have a blouse or a sweatshirt on that hangs really low, you don't want to have that hit a burner and then ignite and set your clothes on fire. So you kind of want to have more of a tight fitting clothes when it comes to cooking, just to protect yourself. And oh my goodness. The other thing too, sometimes when you're cooking in the kitchen, and usually there's a smoke alarm in a lot of these kitchens. So sometimes people will deactivate them while they're removing the battery or just taking them down. You know, if some people who have things that will get smoky, or sometimes steam from boiling a pot on the stove, right, will set off these smoke alarms. And if you have problems where they're going off constantly, some people say it's their dinner bell. When the smoke alarm goes off, they know supper is ready. Instead of taking the batteries down or deactivating them and putting them away, you can buy smoke alarms out on the market, Canadian Tire or anywhere else, Rona, and they have what they call a hush button. So if they do activate, you just push the button. It doesn't actually deactivate the smoke alarm. It just makes it quiet for approximately 15 to 20 minutes. And then once 15-20 minutes goes back up, then the alarm will sound again. So those are good things to have in the kitchen if you do have problems with yours going off constantly. And like I said, if you deactivate it, there is a fee for that, or sorry, a fine. It's not good to have. But yeah, those are some of the ideas for safe cooking. And like I said, don't leave your stove unattended. You know, don't put a pot on the stove and turn it on and run downstairs to change the laundry, because things can happen pretty fast. Another thing for cooking there is grease. You do not want to have a pot on the stove full of cooking oil to cook French fries and stuff like that, because they can ignite very fast. Grease fires can be very dangerous, especially if you try to pick up the pot and take it outside or pour it in the sink. It doesn't take much to splash it where somebody can get severely burned and then drop it and then set the whole kitchen on fire. If you're going to be cooking with grease and you like your French fries, there's things on the market that are used or that you can purchase that are much safer than using the old grease on the pot. Growing up as a kid, that's what my mom did, you know, made French fries. And now she has one of these machines there now. You just put like a little bit of oil
the air
in it.
Fryer.
Yes, those are safe, right? They're great. It's a great way to get your French fries and have it done in a safe manner.
So again, modern technology, the world has moved on, that the manufacturers have learned that there are dangers in the home, in the kitchen, in the furniture, in the appliances, and they have made improvements, and we can get those for our homes to ensure that we are safe at home from fires. So let's look at another source of danger. Now, many people like to burn candles in their home to add a nice fragrance to their place. But I understand, if I'm not mistaken, that those in the fire department don't like to hear anything like that. Is that the case?
We do not light candles in the fire service. We've had lots of fires due to candles. So you know what? They're very nice to have and stuff, you know, to set the mood or make things cozy and stuff like that. But they are extremely dangerous. We've had fires here in town, and it was due to candles being lit and unattended, and you know, sometimes pet will knock them over and start a fire. Now there is other solutions for, instead of using regular candles, you can buy the battery powered candles. They're made of wax. They do have a artificial flame, we'll say, that moves there due to currents. I have them. They're great, and and for the smells, well, then we can all buy items there to plug into your wall outlets there, or Sensi's, I believe, or you can buy these. Geez Louise, they're like a mist. I don't know, a thing that creates mist with a nice fragrance, and then use the battery ones. Candles are extremely, extremely dangerous. People have put them in their bedrooms, to make things nice and cozy and fall asleep. And, eventually the candles will burn down. Sometimes they will burn out. Sometimes they will not. Right? And then things would get ignited. And then I'm coming to your door to put it out. So candles are dangerous. There is... You'll see them in restaurants at tables there where they're sitting in a glass of water. The little tea candles, I believe, is what they're called. And that's part of the code. So if they do get knocked over, the water will extinguish them. So, if you're going to use candles, I don't recommend it. But if you are, make sure you have something that's the candle is sitting into, that it's stable. You don't have to worry about a pet knocking it over. You don't have to worry about your child knocking things over or anything like that. And you know what? You should never leave them unattended anyway. If you're going to have a candle there, whether it's at your Christmas dinner or stuff like that, somebody should always be there to make sure that the candle is in an upright position and no chance of falling over.
That may make some people unhappy. No candles to create the mood, or the traditional way of providing fragrance in the home. But as you say, there are alternatives. So safety is more important than some of those other considerations. So let's look at another appliance in the home that can pose a risk, and that is the clothes dryer. Tell us how this is so and how we can reduce the risk of clothes dryers leading to fires.
So clothes dryers, they run on high voltage. Obviously they generate heat and so forth there to dry your clothes. So all this moisture that's being pulled out of your clothes pretty much has to go somewhere. So they all have dryer vents, right? So on the back of your dryer, there's a pipe there, and then usually you have a tube that kind of goes up and vents outside so that you're not filling your house full of humidity. Some people are still using the white plastic accordion style vent tube. Those, you shouldn't have them. You should go to the aluminum one where it's less chance, therefore, it does get hot, that it's going to melt. Other thing you want to be careful about when you have a clothes dryer is the angles. So if you have a sharp bend where the actual pipe coming out of the dryer has kind of like a kink in it to go up the wall to go outside, well, what happens is you're choking off the flow, we'll say, and where you're going to get lint build up in there. So instead of the lint going up through the pipe and going outside, it's going to collect, and eventually what will happen is it will build up so much where it will actually choke it off. Now you got to remember, you're always having heat pumped through this thing there, so there is potential for that to ignite and cause a fire. Another thing is the lint trap in your dryer, right? Or you know what, you should change it, or not change it, sorry, but you should clean it after every use, so that when you put new clothes in, it's nice and clean, air will flow, and we don't have to worry about any of those fine particles getting hot enough to cause a fire. I've probably been to 15 or 20 dryer fires over the years, and usually that's what it was, is people weren't cleaning the lint traps, or they had the white plastic accordion tube coming out where it was pressed up right against the wall, because everybody wants to have everything close to the wall so you're not losing any other floor space. And so those are some of the things that you have to be careful when it comes to using a dryer, whether it's natural gas or electric.
Because lint is tinder.
Yes.
The best tinder you could find.
Yes, as a Boy Scout over the years, we used to use lint and candle wax for fire starters, right? For if you ever got lost in the woods and stuff like that. So yeah, there is potential there for a fire to happen if things aren't clean and maintained.
John, you had mentioned earlier extension cords. Shall we look a little bit more at cords and plugs and how far they pose the danger of fire in the home? What have you seen in terms of electrical fires over the years?
So a lot of times over the years, anytime we've been to electrical fire, it's been usually due to improper use of an extension cord, right? Once again, an extension cord is not designed to be permanent use. If you have to use an extension cord every day for your fridge, you know what? You're best off to get an electrician in to put another outlet in the wall with the proper wiring. Because over time, you start getting what they call resistant heating, where it'll actually start melting the protective covering over the extension cord, which will eventually break down and then ignite. The other thing is you don't want to put anything to cover over the extension cord, because with the energy that is going through, that is being used on whatever, there is still heat being caused. If you're using an extension cord, say a long one, a lot of times people will coil it up really, really tight and make it nice and tight. Well, this causes problems because sometimes you're breaking the wiring. And once again, anytime you're using an extension cord, heat is being generated. So if you have everything really, really tight, right, it's holding in that heat, and eventually things will start to melt, and then they'll start to ignite. Now, hopefully, your fuse box will catch the fault, right, and trip the breaker, but still, that will just shut the power off. If the fire is already started, the fire is already started. Using heaters and stuff like that, they draw a lot of energy. If you're going to use an extension cord for a short period of time, a temporary solution, which they're intended for, you want to make sure that it's something that is CSA approved. Okay, Canada Safety Authority. You can go buy one at some places. Say for an example, a 10-foot extension cord for $2. Right? You go to Canadian Tire, that extension cord that's the same length, a little heavier duty, may cost you $24. I'll tell you right now, one is certified, one is not. And you know what? Quality only hurts once. Okay, you can buy these cheap ones, they don't last, and there's a high risk because they have not been certified by Canada to be used compared to something that is. So you want to make sure that anytime you're using an extension cord, it has a CSA approval. Usually when you buy anything in most stores, Canadian Tire and stuff like that, it's written right on the package that it's CSA approved or ULC. Those are some of the things that you want to make sure when you're purchasing an extension cord, that it is actually certified. Because heaven forbid you use something that you got for $2 and you're going to use it improperly, 99% of the time you're going to have a fire. Especially if you're plugging a fridge into it or a space heater or anything like that where it draws a lot of energy. That is, like I said, it's not designed for that, and it hasn't been tested and approved by the Canada government to actually be used in that way. So you want to make sure everything is certified that you're using, and extension cords is only a temporary solution.
And what about power bars? Are they a good alternative to getting the electrician in to put in a new outlet?
So power bars are pretty much the same idea. You want to make sure that it's plugged into the wall. Now, a power bar has better standards, we'll say, and it can be used plugged in on some cases temporarily. Depends on the brand and the model and stuff like that. But a big thing, once again, is a lot of them are out there on the market where you can buy at some stores where you can buy a power bar for $2 compared to one that is $40. Once again, one is certified, one is not. And sometimes some of this stuff gets into the country and is sold, but really they shouldn't be. And there's different models of power bars where they have heavy cage wire. Some of them do have circuit breakers inside them, and are very well made. So once again, quality only hurts once. So if you do require to have a power bar, say for your computer or for your television, where you plug in your surround sound and your DVD player. I don't think anybody uses VHS anymore, but stuff like that, you want to make sure that it's a good quality product that you're going to be using, and you don't have to worry about any type of fire.
Let's take things a little further and imagine the unfortunate circumstance where there is a fire, despite everything all the precautions we took, and there is a fire, and someone has, flames coming up their clothes. What should you do in a situation? What should a senior do in a situation like that?
You know what? It goes back to what we teach children today in school. Stop, drop, and roll. That is probably the best thing to do, and it's the quickest thing to do, is to stop what you're doing, drop and roll to extinguish the fire, whether you're going left to right or whatever. Sometimes people will try to take things off, but sometimes, you try to pull off a sweatshirt sometimes, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily that easy sometimes, especially with somebody who has mobility issues, or if they have some type of arthritis in their hands and stuff like that, where their hands don't have the full mobility as others. So the best thing to do would be to stop, drop, and roll. That's what I suggest.
And for someone who is in a wheelchair?
For a wheelchair, geez Louise, if they're capable, to get on the floor and try to roll over as much as they can, that's, hopefully somebody who's in a wheelchair, and mobility issues are always going to be a problem. For somebody to take off a shirt or something like that, I think it would be much harder than it would be for them to get themselves on the floor and to roll. If you are confined to a wheelchair and stuff like that, big thing is safe cooking. Obviously, if you have nobody to help you out, or no other outside agency and stuff like that, you can call the fire department anytime, and we will come up and try to give you some ideas on how you can go about safe cooking practices and stuff like that. But if their clothes do, heaven forbid, do ignite, it's the same. Get yourself on the floor and try to roll yourself over as much as you can to extinguish the fire.
So fire departments have a slogan that's "Smoke alarms save lives." For those who think of smoke alarms as a bother, having to spend money and to get one, and to get batteries every year to ensure these are properly maintained, what's your experience of smoke alarms and their ability to save lives?
Smoke alarms, they do save lives, for sure. I've been to quite a bit of fatalities over my 26 plus years in the fire service, and I would say 98% of them who perished in fires did not have a working smoke alarm. A smoke alarm gives you lots of notice to get out. Okay, you have a fire burning, and if you have no early detection, like a smoke alarm, before you know it, you could be trapped and perish that way, or you could die of smoke inhalation. You know, when a fire starts, it's not usually loud. You know, it's not like horns and bells or anything like that. You know, so a lot of times people, I've had people who've died in their beds because they did not know that there was a fire in their home. Smoke alarms, yes, they can be annoying at times and stuff like that. But like I said, once again, technology has changed. You can now buy smoke alarms with the hush button, so if they do go off because of cooking, or if you came out of the shower, and usually your smoke alarm should be outside your sleeping area, usually, you know, across from the bathroom, and if you've had hot showers, you've activated the alarm, you know, you just push the button, and within 15 minutes, the alarm will go back to full readiness, we'll say. People have no problems buying batteries for their remotes, for their televisions. So you know what? There is no excuse to put a battery in your smoke alarm. You know, it's recommended that you do it at least once a year. You know, the best way to remember is when you change the clocks, you change your batteries. So I recommend twice a year, but the law states you should be done at least once a year. Like anything else, a smoke alarm has an expiry. They're not forever. Manufacturers recommend that you do change them out at least once every 10 years. You know, and that's, you know, so it helps cut down on the false activations and stuff like that. Some of the new smoke alarms out now have a 10-year battery in them. So you don't have to worry about changing the smoke alarm. However, you still should check it, hit the test button to make sure that it's operational. We tell people this all the time. If you do have problems, whether you can't reach it because you're a senior and you don't want to get on a chair, you call the fire department. We will come, not a problem at all. There is no charge. You know, we recommend that if you need the batteries changed, you should have the battery there waiting for us, and we will make sure that you're nice and safe. But they are very, very, very important. And it's the law. It's a $365 for not having a smoke alarm. Now, if we come to your home and you have a fire and you don't have a working smoke alarm, we will lay a charge. We have zero tolerance. So that tells you how important it actually is. It's recommended that you have one, it is the law, you must have one on every floor of your home. So if you have a two-story home, you should have three. You should have one in the basement, one on your main floor, and one outside your sleeping area. Some of the homes that we have that are built, say, after 1982, they have what they call a hardwired one. So it's electric. Okay? So after 10 years, you should replace it with another electric. You're not allowed to go to battery. And that's just written in the building code and in the fire code. So if you got to replace an electric one, you have to replace it with an electric one. You can't replace it with a battery. So you should test them frequently. Sometimes people cook all the time and test them quite often, but you should check just to make sure. You know, it's in your best interest, and it will save your life. Very, very, very important, and I can't stress that enough. And like I said, over 90% of the time for the fatalities I've been to was not having a working smoke alarm where people were unable to get out. So I kind of talk a lot on that one, but that's how important it is.
Yes, it is pretty important, and that's a really stark statistic that what is it? 98% of the fatalities.
It's high. It's almost 100%. Yeah.
Yes, they did not have the smoke alarm. They did not get the warning, and the consequences were the worst. The worst that there can be. What's on the other hand, what's lovely is knowing that if someone has difficulties with their fire alarm, and they maybe cannot open it, arthritis or whatever, they cannot reach up to place it where it should go, they can call the professionals at the fire department, and you'd make a house call.
And there's no charge, and we do not mind coming. We probably do about close to 20 a year. People will call and say it's the time of year, and not a problem. We'll send somebody over right away.
So fire alarms are mandated by law, and you had mentioned something earlier, the carbon monoxide detectors. Tell us a bit more about that one, and that's also required by law as well in Ontario.
Yes, carbon monoxide alarms. If you have a wood fire, wood stove, fireplace, if you have natural gas or propane heat, any type of appliance that uses some type of fossil fuel or wood, you must have a working carbon monoxide alarm or CO detector. CO, anytime you're burning gas or any type of gas or wood appliance or anything like that, that is one of the byproducts of combustion. Okay, it's there, and with new homes today where they're so airtight, and if things aren't maintained properly, you can get a collection of carbon monoxide in your home. Big thing with carbon monoxide is you cannot smell it, you cannot taste it, you cannot see it. So you could have high concentrations of carbon monoxide in your home and not know it until you start feeling ill and stuff like that. It's recommended that you do have one outside your sleeping area. So most of the time, carbon monoxide calls where there's risk of injury happens at night while people are sleeping. So, you don't really notice that you're kind of not feeling well. Sometimes you'll get pinkness, you'll get flushed in the face, you'll kind of bloodshot eyes, maybe a minor headache. These are kind of the minor tattletale signs that there could be a carbon monoxide problem in your home. Another thing is pets. Pets will react to carbon monoxide poisoning quicker than humans because of their natural size, right? Most pets are smaller than their owners, and so they'll start feeling the effects quicker than their owners in their home. Another thing with carbon monoxide is it's not heavier than air and it's not lighter than air. It's just neutral. So it has the same weight as air itself. So it doesn't collect at the bottom of the floor, and it doesn't collect high at the ceiling, like say helium, right? The helium goes up. It just kind of goes with the air currents and air flows. So it's very important to have. They're recommended to be changed out, say, between 5 to 10 years. Usually they come with, they plug into an outlet, say in your hallway or down by your gas fireplace and stuff like that. And they have a battery backup. So sometimes when the power goes off, they'll start chirping, say, usually that's a sign that the battery's got to be changed, and they'll give you a reading. If there's an actual problem with carbon monoxide, it doesn't just kind of give you like a little beep intermittently. It'll be a full-blown alarm. So that's kind of when you know that you got a problem. If your carbon monoxide detector goes into a full-blown alarm, call 911 and get out. That's what we recommend. We have special equipment where we can do readings, and then what we'll call the gas company in to check all your appliances and stuff like that. Never hesitate. If it's chirping and you think that there's some problem, don't hesitate. Call us. We will come over. We'll give you a peace of mind. Heaven forbid that you wait up all night and you don't want to call, but yet you're not sleeping and you're always worried. We will come over and we will do a check for you. And this is the time of the year. that we start doing running carbon monoxide alarms, because people start turning on to their gas fireplaces or burning wood and stuff like that. And especially if people haven't been doing the proper maintenance on their gas furnace or fireplaces and stuff like that, there could be a problem that you don't know about. Maybe a fine crack in the exhaust system where carbon monoxide can come into your home. So you should have all your gas appliance or heating devices checked on a regular basis. Another thing, campers, motorhomes. If you are sleeping in it, you are required by law to have a working smoke alarm and a carbon monoxide alarm. It's the law. Some businesses in town, commercial buildings have them, but they're not required. Carbon monoxides and smoke alarms are usually only required when it comes to if somebody is sleeping in that building. They're still great to have, early notification and stuff like that. But, once again, it comes down to testing to make sure that works. Test at least once a year or once a month, right? It's just a matter of pushing a button. Remember, they don't last forever. Between 5 to 10 years, a carbon monoxide alarm. Smoke alarms are 10, that you must change them out. And you want to make sure that everything is CSA or ULC approved, because there is some items out there on the market that are not approved and not certified. And you know what? You don't want to put yourself or any of your loved ones at risk by buying something cheap. Smoke alarms have gone down quite a bit now. I believe you can buy one now for $12, which is not very much. That's like 3-4 cups of coffee or whatever, especially if it's Starbucks, it's only 2. But, it doesn't hurt, to take the time, do research. If you have questions about what kind you should buy or what brand, they're all pretty much the same. But if you do have any questions or concerns, you can contact us. We will do our best to help you out. Smoke alarms, I should have mentioned before, if you have hearing impairments where you're deaf or anything like that, you can buy smoke alarms now. They have a flashing strobe. So they'll give you a detection that way, not only by hearing, but visual. There's other ones there. They've tested smoke alarms. And I don't mean to go over to smoke alarms, but they did a study where children would sleep through a smoke alarm activation. So you can buy smoke alarms now where you can do a recording as a parent and say, Billy, get up, there's a fire. And they will hear that over an actual tone that the alarm was set out. So there's all kinds of things out on the market. Like I said, the big thing is to make sure that everything is properly certified to use in Canada. And if you have any questions, you can call the fire department at any time of the day. We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's pretty interesting, John. I've learned about that. I never knew the technology had gone that advanced that you can put your own recording into the fire alarm. That sounds like a pretty handy device to have. Yes, where
Absolutely.
There's something I've learned over the years that people respond to their names. So if you can program that into the fire alarm where you use the person's name and an alert, that could be pretty effective.
Yes.
So and also that point you made about if someone is hearing impaired, there are fire alarms that will have a strobe so that the flashing lights will be the alert,
Yes,
rather than the sound, which would not be effective in a home where an individual
yes,
alone is hearing impaired. So that's important to know as well. So let's take a look at having a fire escape plan. Again, let's say we've had all the precautions, but unfortunately there was a fire, but fortunately there's an alarm so that we know that there is this danger. what should an escape plan look like, and when should we have it so that it protects us, gives us the best protection in the case of a fire?
So a fire escape plan is something that a resident would have for the quickest way out of the home in case of fire. Now, you could have, you could have two different ways out of your home. It depends on where the fire would be. So if a fire happened in the kitchen and the kitchen was next to the door to go out, say the front door, right? And if there was a fire in the kitchen, well, then you should have another plan to say, okay, we will go out through the side door or the back door. One of the things that you should have in your fire escape plan is a meeting point. Okay? And in this meeting point, this is where everybody in the home will meet if the fire alarm, or if, say, there's a fire in the home, so that everybody can be accounted for. Okay? Instead of, because when we show up on the fire ground, say to a home, a residence, we'll pull up, and if there's somebody sent out, say, first thing we'll ask is there anybody inside? Because that changes the tone for everything for us, right? We're still going to do the same job, however, there's another step that we have to do. So if everybody, say, in your fire safety plan is that you will go out the back door and we'll meet by the tree in the front yard, for an example. Whether, your children and your spouse and everybody, that's where they'll all go. So when we all show up, you can look right there and say, there's nobody in the house. We'll go in and still do what we're going to do. Now, if you don't have that meeting place, well, first of all, some people will panic. Some people will go back inside, right, to look for a loved one or a pet or anything like that. Big thing that we'll tell you right now, once you're out, you stay out. Never, ever go back in. Because way fires have evolved now, everything seems to go faster. So when you went in, or came out, yeah, there was smoke in the kitchen. You go back in 5 minutes later, that whole kitchen can be totally engulfed in flames, right? Where there's potential for the floor to give away, there's potential for the roof to give away, or a gas line could be about to let go, say to the stove. So the big thing is, once you're out, you stay out. We will go in and we do our best to find pets. We'll, and loved ones, we will go in, we will do the rescue. Don't ever go back in, because, for an example, we show up on scene and there's nobody there at the front door. We're coming in anyway, and it'd be nice to know when we do arrive up on scene, say everybody's out, or we're missing so-and-so and they're in their bedroom, and they can kind of give us an idea where they're at. We will go in right away and get them out, because time is of the essence, right? From usually we can get anywhere within the municipality within 5 minutes from the time you call to the time when you show up on the scene. Now, once we get there, we have to do certain things. We have to make sure, the truck's connected to a hydrant. We have to have the hoses all laid out. We have to have the volunteers there as well, and where we assign them tasks and duties and stuff like that. So a home escape plan is great. Everybody should practice it. Fire Prevention Week is usually done at the end of September, first week of October. That is a great time to do it during Fire Prevention Week. And so that everybody knows what to do in case of fire. Everybody gets out, everybody will meet, wait for the fire department, and everybody's safe. So it's very important to have, and we highly suggest that you practice it. You teach your children, right? You have a little map, and you kind of show it, okay, if there's a fire here, this is the door we're going to go out. Or or you could just even have it say, you go to the door that is safest. But we will all meet at the front of the house by the big red tree or whatever. So it's very, very important to have.
And what about a senior living alone in an apartment with one door? That's the only one route out.
Big thing is a working smoke alarm. If you have a working smoke alarm, you have lots of time to get out, right? It's a great early warning detection. So usually the smoke will trigger it off right away before everything gets burst into flames. You see the movies there where they wake up and then bang, everything bursts into flames. That's unrealistic, right? You have a bit more time than that. So if you're in a, say, one of retirement livings buildings, right? A high rise, and the fire alarm activates. There should be, everybody should have some type of what to do in case of an alarm. If you open up the door and you smell smoke, you close it. Okay? You put a wet towel at the bottom of the door, you get on the phone, you call 911, and you tell us where you're at. Some of these buildings are sprinklered, so there's less chance of fires getting away and stuff like that. A lot of the retirement living buildings are made of non-combustibles. So the departments are designed to keep the fire inside that apartment. But it all comes down to, again, a working smoke alarm. If you have a working smoke alarm, you have lots of time to get out. If you look out the window and you see the fire trucks arriving on scene, it's too late. You do not have time to go out now. So you stay in place, you call the fire department, tell us where you're at, and we'll tell you that we're either coming to get you or tell you to remain calm and you're in a safe place, whether the fire is at the other side of the building or whatnot. We will slowly, once we contain the fire or get everything under control, that's when we'll start to look at evacuating people in a nice, calm, orderly fashion. But they said if you look out the window and fire trucks are already pulling up, you miss that window, right? You stay where you're at. Heaven forbid you go into a stairwell and it's full of smoke. You're not going anywhere. So shelter in place, call the department to let us know where you're at.
So we have just a couple of questions to round off. Now, for fire safety reasons, doors should remain easy to open so that you can have a quick and easy escape. But in some homes, there are seniors with Alzheimer's who tend to wander the streets, and that's a problem. So the family members, the spouse or the family members may make that door difficult to open to prevent the senior from leaving and wandering the streets where they can, get into traffic and be in danger. So what would you recommend for a family in a situation like that has to balance keeping the senior with Alzheimer's safe from wandering and keeping the home safe in terms of fire safety and being able to escape quickly and easily if there's a fire?
So, once again, working smoke alarms. You have lots of time to get out if you have a working smoke alarm. And one of the things you do is that once the alarm activates, you grab the individual who has Alzheimer's and stuff like that, and you go out to your meeting spot and you wait for the fire, call 911 and wait for the fire department to show up. If you have a working smoke alarm, you have lots of time to get out. That is your best early warning detection system that money can buy. I know that there is some things out on the market that the doors are locked, but once the smoke alarm activates, everything unlocks. Okay, it's all done through magnetic electrical locking system. I don't know for residential if you can. I suppose you can buy it for residential, but we do have some care facilities that have that the door is locked, but once the alarm is activated, everything is unlocked. But with a working smoke alarm, you should have lots of time to get your loved one and get them out. There is bracelets that you can buy, or at least I believe through the community policing, Constable Phil Young, for people who has Alzheimer's, and it's kind of like a tracking device that they wear. So it looks kind of like a watch, and when it's on, if they do wander off, or heaven forbid, right, they can track them down with this system. I believe it's got a built-in GPS system that for tracking and stuff like that. But for in your home and your alarm activates, there should always be a caregiver, obviously, for the individual and there to get them out. And you know what? It doesn't hurt to have a fire safety plan, right? What are we going to do if this happens? And practice. Now, I know with some Alzheimer's patients, they get very agitated and stuff like that when smoke alarms and that go off. And it's very bothersome for them, especially if you have a lot of false activations and stuff like that. But once again, there is products out there on the market that can be used to help assist you with those issues that you're having. But the big thing is, working smoke alarm, you have time to get out. And I can't stress that enough, right? Everything comes down to a working smoke alarm. And like I said, for $12, you can get one, and we'll help you install it, right? There's no reason for anybody not to have a working smoke alarm today.
Thank you very much for that, Chief. And as you said again, technology has advanced so that it can be a solution and prioritize fire safety over other concerns. What you mentioned there about the GPS, rather than locking the doors so tightly to prevent someone from wandering, perhaps the GPS, if the person does wander, that gives you the ability to find them and bring them back into safety. So that there's a solution there. So great. So the final question I had was something that someone mentioned. Sometimes seniors don't like to have phones around, cellular phones. They don't like the technology, but I heard it said that the best thing we can do is ensure that we always have a working cell phone or phone in the bedroom with us. Would you agree with that? That that's the best thing that seniors or any one of us can do, and always ensure we have a working cell phone in the bedroom with us when we're sleeping.
If you're living alone, and heaven forbid you start having chest pain or something like that while you're in bed, it would be nice to have easy access to some way of communication, whether it's call a caregiver or a family member or calling emergency services. Absolutely, I think it's a great thing to have. My mom is 88 years old and lives by herself, and there is a phone right beside her bed. And, if the smoke alarm goes off, she knows that she's got to get out. She's going to take that phone and call 911 and stuff like that. So, yeah, absolutely. Any way that you can communicate with somebody to get help, it's I think that's something that everybody should have. And I think most people do. For all the homes that I went and done medical calls in bedrooms and stuff like that, they've all had a phone. Now, maybe there's the odd one that does not, but I think most people do. And you know what? Another thing, it doesn't hurt for seniors to check on their friends who are seniors as well. If you notice things that are not normal, like the curtains are not open. It's 11 o'clock, and usually your curtains are open by 9, and it's 11. You know what? Go over and check. And if you're unable, call 911. Say that there is a possibility that there's something wrong or there's something out of the ordinary. Somebody will come to make sure that that individual is safe. And you know what? My mom has friends who know, she usually calls them, to find out what's going on, and all my siblings, we call. And there was one time that I called twice a day to make sure that she's okay. And all my family are in the East Coast, so I have nobody in Ontario. I called and no answer. And then I was like, okay. I was pretty sure she wasn't going anywhere or doing anything. Anyway, so I started calling. And I found out the power was out. And she had her cordless phone relies on power. And this is a big thing people got to remember when they do put the cordless phone by the bed, right? When the power goes off, they do not work. So it's not like the old phones, with the dials and stuff like that, where the power went out. They still worked, but a lot of these cordless phones, I'd say pretty much all of them, they don't work when the power goes out. So that's something to remember. If you are looking at, if you don't have a phone in your bedroom and you're thinking about putting one in there, if you can put a hardwired one in there, one that runs off the old phone system, it doesn't hurt. And you can buy them at the source. People still do sell them because people still do have them. They're not very expensive, but it's a good thing to have some type of communication, especially if you're by yourself. And and you don't have family who live in town, and we have quite a few seniors like that here in town, where most of their family are down south and stuff like that. So there's nobody really checking on them and making sure that things are okay. So yeah, I think it's a great thing to have by your bed, and I think everybody should, so that if you need help, you can call for help.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that, John, and thank you for everything that you've shared. Those were the questions that I had. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would say would be good to round off our discussion to keep seniors safe?
Well, you know what? Seniors, all retirees, they like to travel. So if you are going to a hotel or you're going to a resort or anything like that, take note of the exits. All hotels and resorts will have an escape plan on the back of the door, and with instructions on what to do when an alarm activates. You know what? It only takes a minute just to have a look, and you know what? I highly suggest you do it, because you never know, right? You don't know. And how many people have been in hotels and the fire alarms went off in the middle of the night, they open up the door, there's nothing, and go back to bed. You know what? Get dressed, go out to the lobby, wherever that you're supposed to do, use the stairwell, do not use the elevator. Use the proper stairwell that's lit with the running man, or have exit, but most now have the green running man. And you know what? Go out and meet with everybody else and make sure. Yeah, you might lose a bit of time to sleep, but you'll get to see fire trucks. So I highly recommend that you do take the time to, if you go anywhere it's strange, whether you're going to a family member's home. You know what? I do it. Some of my family members just laugh at me, but I make them check the smoke alarms just to make sure, because heaven forbid, you don't know, you have people over, you have some parties, and some people sleep really, really good, and then if the smoke alarm is not working, and heaven forbid there's a fire, you know what, your chances of getting her out are pretty slim. So those are the things that I like, I try to tell everybody to do, and I do it religiously. Whatever hotel I'm in, especially traveling for conferences and stuff like that, I make sure I know the exit. I know where to go, and I always read what's on the back of the door. And you know what? It takes a minute. And like I said, that alarm goes off. Get dressed. Go outside. Do not go back to bed, because one day you could get caught. So, and why take the risk?
Yes, fire safety wherever we go. Even on vacation, when we have our guards down, that is really important to still have that at the back of our mind, and to take that little moment, as you say, to understand what precautions we should take and how we can follow the fire safety plan that's baked into the resort or the motel or hotel that we're at. Thank you once again, John, for the time that you've shared, and even more so for the information that you've shared. You will help. What you've shared will help seniors stay safe at home or when they're traveling, wherever they go. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed this immensely. It was great.
So we were very privileged to speak today with Fire Chief John Thomas, the Chief of the Fire Department here in Elliott Lake, Ontario, where the Diversity Canada Foundation is based, the organization that brings you this program. So thank you very much, John, for all of the information you provided to help seniors remain safe in their homes and stay safe from fires. And thank you very much for joining us for this episode of the GoldenYears Fireside Chat. It's been part of our series under the theme of living longer and living well. You'll find this and other fireside chats at goldenvoices.com. That is the online portal brought to you by the Diversity Canada Foundation to give seniors an opportunity to gather and focus on issues of importance to seniors. I am Celia Sanker, Executive Director of the Diversity Canada Foundation. Thank you very much for being with us, and see you next time on the Fireside Chats. Until then, take good care of yourself. Bye now.